Well, good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome back to Inside the Game here on this Thursday morning. Thursday morning on the National Soccer Network. Whew. Nathan, we're getting close to the weekend, my friend. Getting close. Jonathan Turner alongside Nathan Wengler. And it is Thursday, one day closer to the weekend. And Nathan, man, I'm looking forward to having a great show. How about you?
Well, likewise. Yeah, always, every morning, all the time, everywhere. Yes, I am looking forward to having a good show. And with the spring season coming up, I feel like there's a lot of stuff to talk about. I know yesterday we talked a lot about the MI High School ranking show. So I know at least coming up on Sunday, it's to figure out where the field is and where we think it's going to be in the upcoming year is going to be interesting. But like I said, we're kind of building up, ramping up to that big time of the year, especially now with women's high school soccer on the brink. So, yeah, we're gonna be right there, and obviously we got a lot of important things moving and shaking. But I guess I'm wondering what we got on the docket today.
It's a great question. It's a great question. So, we're going to talk some MASL here today. There's a lot of, it's getting close here to the end of this MASL arena season, right? We're only about 2 weeks away from the start of the playoffs, right? And so to not talk about it would be a mistake, and we need to talk about it. So we're going to get into that this morning. Last night I put a poll on Twitter. I asked this question. The poll is this: who wins the MASL championship this season, right? And right now, if you've been paying attention to the standings on any level, right, and I'm going to put those on your screen right now. If you've been paying attention to the standings at all, you know where the teams are right now. And let me get them on the screen right here. Hang on a second as we push this in. Here it is, MASL standings. Okay, so let's put this on the screen. Let's talk about this for a second, okay? And Nathan, right now, you look at Chihuahua Savage, and obviously they have won it 2 consecutive years in a row. They're looking to go to a three-peat, right? Obviously, we talked about this earlier in the year. There's not a lot of teams that have been able to three-peat in professional sports, and here's a chance Chihuahua, based out of Chihuahua, Mexico, have a chance to do that. They currently sit right now 1 point ahead of San Diego. They sit 8 points ahead of Kansas City, and they sit there's a big separation between fourth and third. I was actually fourth and third, but fourth and first, right? But anyways, this is the playoff standings as we see it right now. Top 8 will go. So Tacoma Stars all the way through Chihuahua can go to the playoffs here, and a lot on the line. Tacoma last night beating Texas pretty handily in Texas last night. That game was on the National Soccer Network, so make sure if you haven't, tune into that. So I put this poll out last night. Who wins this thing? All right. Now, San Diego, Chihuahua, Baltimore, Kansas City. Now, Twitter only allows me to put in 4, so I put in 4, right? And clearly put in the top 4 right now. You could argue that any one of the 8 maybe could have a chance, right? But to be fair, this is going to come down to 2 teams, in my opinion. It's going to come down to 2 teams. All right. It's going to come down to the Chihuahua Savage and the other 2 teams combined. I feel like San Diego and Kansas City have to combine themselves to beat Chihuahua. But I actually believe Kansas City has a fighting chance here. I like San Diego. It is in their home, right? So these games are going to take place in San Diego at their home arena. But I actually like Kansas City more. And to be fair, the fans do too. They're saying 68% right now are going to win this thing. Chihuahua getting 11.4. To be fair, my guess is probably I can't find Chihuahua on Twitter land, so maybe they didn't, so the fans didn't see it, right? But again, Kansas City right now is put themselves. They're giving themselves the W. Now I don't blame them. I mean, again, right now you're sitting third, right? But you've lost 3 in a row. You've lost 3 in a row. You've got San Diego; they've won 6 in a row. Chihuahua's won 2 in a row. I mean, Chihuahua, they are 11-0 at home. San Diego 10-0 at home. Kansas City 8-1-1, right? So Baltimore, who 7-0 at home. I mean, I've never seen like home field advantages be so strong in a league. I mean, even your teams that are like down the way here. I mean, obviously Texas is at home. They need to do something different there.
Yeah.
Texas Outlaws are 1-10 at home, and they actually have a better road record. Maybe that's just, I don't know. I mean, maybe just something there? I mean, maybe.
Here's what I'll say. I like KC because of Rion Marquez. Like I've been saying this all year long. Anytime we've talked about the MASL and exactly who's going to come out on top in the Ron Newman Cup, Rion Marquez is always one of the first ones I go to. He's been a headliner. And the thing is KC, they have a couple of superstars, but the thing about their roster is it seems a little bit to me, JT, it seems a little top heavy. They need their best guys on and producing in order to win big games. And their goal differential, again, and you got it up right in front of you, is not great in comparison to a lot of the teams around them. I mean, they have the lowest goal differential outside of the 7th seed right now in the MASL, which is Utica City FC. Everywhere around them, as you talked about, Chihuahua is plus 90 goal differential. They're the deepest team in this tournament. I understand San Diego's on a roll right now, but we still understand that Chihuahua is still the deepest team in the league. San Diego, but again, plus 34. Now, that doesn't tell you everything, right? Because I think San Diego has a great defensive team. I still think Chihuahua is the best team in the league. Good news for all 3 of those squads. They're already locked up, right? So they're not going anywhere. But the other part of this is, and logistically, it works out for the MASL. But logistically, it might not work out for the rest of the field because where this tournament, where these playoffs are going to be played. That's the part of this story that I don't know if everyone is necessarily paying attention to, but they absolutely need to pay attention to. Right? It's going to be at the new Front Wave Arena in Oceanside, California. So it's going to be in San Diego. And one of the storylines that we've talked about when it comes to the MASL all year is that there are a handful of teams that just simply don't lose at home. JT, in the top 4 teams combined, you have 1 loss at home, and that was by Kansas City. 1 at home. Baltimore's undefeated at home. San Diego's undefeated at home, and Chihuahua is undefeated at home. So when you talk about we're going to have this tournament in San Diego, right, in terms of population of people that actually show out to games, buy tickets, come and cheer, San Diego is one of the top attended teams in the league. And it's because of them building that new stadium. They got that brand new stadium. There's a lot of people. Obviously, it's in San Diego, so the soccer culture is very nice. They love their arena soccer. But they're one of the loudest, nicest venues in the entire league. And so that automatically, before you even talk about, the game planning, game film, this team's won this amount or whatever stats you want to talk about. And obviously coming up on Friday, it'll be a good matchup, a lot to talk about between the top 2 teams. Obviously, we might get a preview of what's to come in that championship. But when you talk about strategy and what might actually end up happening, I imagine home arena advantage is a big thing. And so San Diego will have the ability to ride that out for the entirety of the postseason because you're not bouncing in between location to location. So when you look at the outline of this thing, you think certain guys might have an opportunity to shine. And you think, Chihuahua still has a really good chance. And obviously Rion Marquez is a superstar and KC has some really good offensive firepower. And they've proven to have some good goaltending at the same time. But you're playing this entire tournament in San Diego. So to me, automatically San Diego gets my nod to be the team to go out and win a championship. Now, I know postseason play is different. I know postseason play is different than regular season play. But I think that changes a lot, JT. I think that changes the entire complexion of this tournament.
I think it does too, but here's the thing too, right? I know we talk about it, and goal differential is a really sexy stat, right? Oh my gosh, Chihuahua scored 90 goal. They have a 90 goal differential, right? They scored 193 goals this season, way more than any other opponent, right? I mean, I think they have like a 69 goal differential between overall goals for versus the San Diego Sockers. It's crazy how many goals they've scored, right? But at the end of the day, the only thing that matters when it comes to winning soccer games is that you have one more goal than the team that's behind, than the losing team, right? All matters. And so I look at this, okay, so goals allowed, right? Goals allowed, right? Chihuahua's allowed 103. San Diego has allowed 90. Kansas City's allowed 95.
Yeah.
Now, they've only scored 109. I get it, and they're plus 14. But defensively, both of these three teams, who's the better defensive team? Right now, to be fair, it's Baltimore. Baltimore's only allowed 86 goals. So the best defensive team right now allowing goals in the league is the fourth place team. They've scored more goals than Kansas City. But to be fair, when you go and play against Texas Outlaws and you score 15 goals when you're scoring 5 in your other games, those stats don't mean anything.
They get watered down.
They get watered. They mean nothing.
Yeah.
So I look at this from the standpoint, okay, Kansas City and San Diego, a 5-goal differential between the goals that they've allowed, right? Chihuahua Savage, they allow goals. I mean, they're allowing 13 more than San Diego, and was that 8 more than Kansas City. So, I look at it like that. Scoring goals is a thing. I get it. But to be fair, you can go through these stretches where you don't score goals. You can go through stretches where you score 5 or 6 goals and you're winning games by 1 goal, right? That does happen. I'm not saying it happens often, but it does happen. And so I look at this from the standpoint of this. What team right now, and you mentioned it, San Diego, they're home, they're 10-0. Okay. To be fair, and I've had this conversation with the league about like this, Chihuahua Savage, going into Chihuahua Savage and playing that arena, there's a lot of nuance to the arena, right? There's a lot of the boards. The ball doesn't bounce off the boards like it does in other arenas. So, and I would imagine that every team is kind of playing, that board game. They're going to tighten things up, loosen things up a little bit to give their team an advantage. No different than cutting your field a certain way, with the right length, or watering it down a certain way, or doing this, that, or the other to make your field a little bit more beneficial to your team and detrimental to the other team. So I do believe that plays a factor. So Chihuahua is very good at home. All right. Very good at home. On the road, they're middle of the pack.
Yeah.
They are middle of the pack. They're 6-4. Right. So you look at that road game. Okay. San Diego Sockers will become a non-factor for them when they're talking about playing at home here, next, in 3 weeks, right? They're 7-3 away. So it really won't matter. I don't know how much this will play as a home game, to be fair. I mean, obviously, you're playing in your arena. You have this home field advantage. I don't know how much of that really is a factor in these situations. I mean, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But I like Kansas City. There's just something about them right now that just is sticking out to me. Like, you know what? I think Kansas City they have a fighting chance here. They got to find a way to win some soccer games here over the next week or so. They're currently sitting in that third place, and if they keep losing, they're going to put themselves in a spot where they could fall below that and go into fourth. You want to be top 4, no question, right? Top 4 gives you the chance to do a number of things. You want to be top 4. But I think about looking at this again from the standpoint of just goals allowed. Both San Diego and Kansas City have better defenses, you could argue better goalkeeping. Right. As a matter of fact, Neil Rule, as part of our broadcast last week for the Savage against Kansas City, we were talking about the goalkeeping from Kansas, how many saves goalkeeper from Kansas City had made, over the last, over the season, and how I think it was like, and again, I didn't do the game, so I don't know off the top of my head. I'm going to pull it up right here. I want to say it's Adaju. Is that pronounced his last name? Hang on here. Goalkeeper. Yeah. Ajamadu. 16 games played, 14 games started, 10 wins. He's got 243, shots against, goals against 65. He's made 180 saves. Right. So, good goalkeeping gets you over the goal line, right? Big time saves, right? Yeah. I don't think you can say that about the goalkeeping, for Chihuahua. I mean, honestly, they've let 103 goals.
No, probably not. No, they're a team that wins in shootouts, and they're a team that tries to overwhelm you. And so, and I don't even. The thing is playing at breakneck speed, it's uniquely MASL in the fact that it happens so fast. So they are a, you know, if you want to put it into basketball terms, they're kind of like a transition team. You know, they'll lull you to get yours, but then they're going to grab it right back and look for the first best shot within the first 5 seconds. And they have dudes who can make those shots. Something else I'll add on to it. And I know I gave, you know, obviously the home arena advantage to San Diego. Something else I'll give to San Diego. I'm going to hit you with a line that coaches say all the time. Coaches say it all the time. Good defense wins championships. Okay? Every single time. You look at that across sports, really, like basketball, football, everything. Name the team that ends up going on to win the championship. Oftentimes they have a top 5 defense every single time. So I think it's interesting that you talk about the goals against because you have a good point there. And I know it points to Kansas City in one way because you talked about their goaltending, you talked about the defensive prowess, and yeah, obviously they got playmakers who can make plays the other way. San Diego is also renowned for their defense. So, right, it's not just the home arena advantage, it's also their ability to play defense. It's been consecutive years where they have not allowed more than 100 goals. 2 years ago, they didn't allow 100 goals. Last year, they did not allow 100 goals. Right now, they're sitting at 90, right? And when you got a game against Chihuahua coming up and you got to wrap up the rest of the season, I don't know if they can keep that streak alive. But if there's one team that has been renowned the last handful of years as being the best defensive team in the MASL, it has been San Diego, almost far and away San Diego. So now you give them that opportunity as one of the best teams in their home arena. And I agree because it's not everything is necessarily uniform in the way that these arenas are in the MASL. It's weird. It's very reminiscent of, you know, hockey can tend to be that way. Some teams have Olympic-sized rinks. Some teams have NHL-sized rinks. Very different. You know, same with football. Some have turf. Some have fields. Some have different things that they use. I don't know what it is that makes San Diego Stadium unique, and I don't even know if it's the stadium itself, but something about that place is simply, JT, much like Chihuahua is, it's a house of horrors. You really don't want to go and play there if you don't have to because you realize what that means. And so home field plus their defense is going to be really, really hard. Now, it's going to be interesting. Like I said, tomorrow, in a lot of ways, in my mind, is going to be kind of a measuring stick. You know, what does San Diego do tomorrow in Chihuahua that shows me that they are ready to go out and win that championship?
I don't think that San Diego's going to really care. I mean that in the sense.
You don't think they want that first overall spot?
I think you obviously the reality is that you're first.
They can take it if they win it.
Oh, of course they can. But here's the thing. You know this. Everyone's going into this game already knowing what the potential outcome is. And it's not because that San Diego is worse than Chihuahua and not that Chihuahua is better than San Diego. It's just that for some reason in that environment, Chihuahua is unstoppable. So do you go into that game trying to get the number 1 spot out of Chihuahua, knowing that you already have it at your home here in 2 weeks? Already know that when Chihuahua does not fare well on the road, I think you go into that game, and I'm not saying teams are playing to lose, but my argument is that I don't think San Diego's going in there saying, we're going to win this game. We're going to do everything we can to win this game. I think San Diego is going into that game saying, hey, let's stay healthy. Let's be ready for the playoffs because Chihuahua does not do well on the road. I'm looking at this right now.
Yeah.
San Diego Soccer's back on February the 16th. San Diego wins 5-2 at home. Okay. Right, you look at Chihuahua again. Chihuahua on the road against Dallas. They beat Dallas 10-2 on the road. Okay, fair. Okay, Utica City. They lost Utica City 10-6. Lost Utica City 10-6 here. That was back on the 23rd of February. Again, they lost. Then Utica City, same thing. A day before that, they lost 19-6. How the hell do you turn around the next day and win 10-6 after getting spanked by 13 goals the night before? That didn't make any sense to me. You see here, again, Empire Strikers, Toyota Arena. Chihuahua beat them by 1 goal, 6-5. The night before that, 2 days before that, Chihuahua won 11-5, right? So I'm looking at this and saying, okay, you know, Chihuahua beating Milwaukee Waves 7-6 back on the 28th of January. Kansas City Comets beat them 5-2. You know, back on January the 25th. So again, this team in Chihuahua, it's weird because they're a very good team, no doubt, very good team. And in the last 2 years, these have been played in Mexico. They have not been played in San Diego, right? I believe these championships have been played in Mexico at Chihuahua, where they have been unstoppable. So Chihuahua, if this was in Mexico this season, if they had the game in Mexico at their Corner Sports Arena, I don't think we're even having a conversation about this right now. I think we could say we're going to crown them for a third time. But being that this is in San Diego, yes, San Diego has home field advantage, so there's a very strong likelihood that they could be the winner of this thing, right? But again, Kansas City, right? What is Kansas City? How have they matched up against San Diego? How have they fared? Because that, to be fair, I think it's gonna be your final. If that's, I'm not sure how the brackets are in, but I actually believe that Kansas City and San Diego are going to be in the finals together. You're in your first tier. I believe San Diego, Kansas City in the finals. I don't think even Chihuahua gets to the finals. Their record is not indicative of that. They do not fare well on the road at all. At all. Yes, they have a winning record, but we're talking about when it comes down to it in the playoffs. You know what I mean? I just don't think they have it. I don't think they have it. So I think it's gonna be Kansas City, Tacoma, and San Diego in the finals, if that's even possible.
I guess.
No, that's my thoughts.
I'll agree with that.
And at that point, it's a coin toss, as far as I'm concerned.
Oh yeah, because you're talking about the two best defensive teams in the league. I believe in the power of positive momentum. I believe in the power of San Diego looking at an opportunity to potentially hand Chihuahua that loss at home before going into the playoffs. And the truth is the hangover effect has a part. And so I don't think they're going to roll over and die. Now, do they win that game? I don't know. I'm not going to come out and say that yes or no one way or the other because, again, we talked about just the tremendous advantage that Chihuahua gets from just playing inside of their own building. And so no wonder why they've had the success the last couple of years. And again, it's not just because they're playing at home. I'm sure they're deep, and all that other stuff. But I think there is some power in, okay, we have an opportunity to beat this team going into the playoffs. I could see that from San Diego as well, the opposite side. Whereas, we keep talking about, rest guys, make sure guys are healthy, all that's nice. I still think there's an element of, hey, if we can carry that one seed into our home building in the playoffs, like we control everything in terms of our destiny, everything. And it's also matchups too. You have to look at, if they finish in second, they get Utica City. And so, Utica City has been on and off, but the one thing I can say about Utica City is they've been known to pull off a few upsets here or there. They've gone toe to toe with Baltimore. They've beat Empire, right? So they've had flashes of being able, and the thing is about playoffs, right? Once you get into playoffs, once you get into that,
Jim Mora, right? It was
something
like that. We're talking about playoffs.
That's an all-time line right there. That's a drop for social media if I've ever had one. But they've been known to go toe-to-toe with those best teams. When you get into the postseason, sometimes it's like that. They have one good lucky run, they have one good lucky streak, and all of a sudden they find themselves in the next round. So you talk about that as opposed to maybe playing Tacoma, who has, truly kind of fallen down the stairs. Also, if you want to talk about the second best record on the road in the MASL, Utica City FC. Did not expect that. They have 6 wins on the road. This is second best. Oh, boy, you pulled up the clip. Wow, look at you. You're quick on that one. Playoffs. Talking about playoffs. Anywho. So, but you're talking about the difference between playing a 6-win team on the road and a 2-win team on the road if you can take over that first spot. So, I think it would just set them up better. But you're right. On the other end, I could definitely see where they kind of take the approach of, we just want to make sure everyone stays in one piece. I get that side of it too.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you. I think that again, anything is possible when you start talking about playoffs, right? Anything is possible. And
Kevin Garnett.
Kevin Garnett, right? We who would have picked in 2004, right? 2004, Detroit Pistons beating the Lakers. Nobody did, right? nobody picked them to win. I think it was 2004. I think it was 2005. They lost.
Shaq is still bitter about that, by the way. I don't know if you've seen
sure.
He thought Chauncey Billups was the head coach because, quote, he doesn't watch the Pistons. Like, you're still mad about 2004. I'm sorry they couldn't fix it for you like they did against the Kings 2 years earlier. Okay, if they didn't fix that one, you'd probably be 0-2 in NBA Finals to that point. Anyways. Shout out Tim Donahue, whatever his name was, the guy, the NBA ref who fixed games. Anyways, so not getting off track here, but he's still very much bitter about 2004. Okay, crazy considering it's been 2 decades already.
You got Reggie Jackson and Hank Aaron, 44 episode. There you go.
Good poll, Peter.
Oh yeah.
I was doing that for a little bit. I think you noticed I forgot it. So he's picking up my slack.
So we're gonna make it a thing here the next few weeks to dive into on Thursdays, kind of leading up to the weekend here, MASL coverage. So join us each and every Thursday as we do that. We'll also get into some other stats as well from around other leagues around the country. We'll get into USL Championship, USL League 2, USLW. We'll get into the MLS, of course, Super League, and so much more as we continue down this path. Yesterday we talked about the rankings, high school rankings. We talked about a number of things, and it was interesting. Before the show started, me and you were talking about one of my daughter's teachers who'd gotten fired for calling one of their kids a dumbass in class. And that led me to ask this. I want to ask this question of the audience. I want to ask this question of you, Nathan, and
you're going to make me old man yelling at a cloud over here?
Playoffs. Dumbass. What a dumb question. I want to ask this question. Is it wrong to call another kid a dumbass? I mean, especially in a school environment. Is it wrong to do that? I mean,
great podcast
topic. If I got a phone call from the school saying, one of your days, our teachers called your son a dumbass, I'd be like, what do you do this time? I don't even know if I would even be mad about it. I'd be like, no, okay, well,
what did he do?
A dumbass? What do you do? Let's smack him across the back of the head. Don't be a dumbass, son. I mean, I don't know. Is that wrong? I don't know. I understand there's certain things that are wrong, but I mean, is that wrong to say? You don't be a dumbass to a student in school. Is that really a fireable offense?
I'm not really the person that always asks for context. And I hate that because sometimes people will see something that went horribly wrong and go, well, what's the context of the situation? Listen, you don't need the context, okay? Something horrible happened. We can acknowledge that without going, well, there's context to the situation. This is a different type of situation, okay? Because I do really need to know the context because get a straw, Nate. Sorry, Peter. Jeez. Am I a dumbass for not having a straw, Peter? I think that's what he's trying to say.
It's not. I think it's not. I think it's not. It's not bad.
It's not bad.
I mean, you really should get a straw, Nathan. I mean.
Oh yeah, look at you. Look at you. No, Oh man. What did they do? Also, there's a lot of worse things that you can be called, and I was telling you about this coming into the show because I know you mentioned it. When I played sports, and there are other people who can certainly relate to this, probably in the older groups, because I am almost 30, so it has been a little bit since I've been in high school. We're now going on a decade since I was in the high school classes. I had coaches that called me far worse. I had coaches that said far worse things, and a lot of it was because I was being whatever way they said I was being. Because I was young and dumb and thought I knew better. And now a whole decade later, I'm starting to realize that they were 100% right about everything. They weren't wrong because of life experience, because of where they've been. The other thing is, too, you're not going to get through to an 18-year-old kid without being that way sometimes. You can't just play nice. And these aren't even 18-year-olds that we're talking about. They're younger than that, right? Because you don't obviously start high school at 18. You graduate at 18 or right around there. Sometimes you can't get through to these kids a lot of times without being, I wouldn't even say a little bit over the edge, but stern, straight up. And, you know, it would have to take a lot. Here's the thing. It would have to take a lot in my mind to get a teacher to that point. Because I know a lot of teachers, right? And I know that the stuff that they deal with, and I know what they come away with, and it is really hard of all the professions to really separate life and work with teaching. And there's some jobs where you can go home and kind of forget about everything that just happened, right? Broadcasting, I take pride in the fact that that's one of the things that I can do. Even if I screwed up on a word or a name, or I screwed up on this call, whatever, no big deal, doesn't matter in an hour, I can drop it. Teaching is very much a different story. A lot of times you take that stuff home with you. And so there's a level of stress that comes with teaching, and it's because you're dealing with the issues that oftentimes the parents are not dealing with themselves at home. Okay? Teachers in 2025, I'm going to tell you right now, they're almost like secondary parents. And they shouldn't be. They shouldn't be. It shouldn't be this way. But in a lot of ways, they are. And not only that, not only are they secondary parents, they have their hands tied behind their back as to how they're allowed to go about disciplining kids, as to how they're allowed to go about telling kids, don't do this, don't do that. That's not smart. This isn't wise. And so context is important in this situation because I need to know what exactly led up to this. And if it is truly something that is deserving of that, then I really don't think that it's worth the career, at least in the meantime, of that teacher. JT, I'll tell you a few stories. I once had, it wasn't a classmate, it was in a different different classroom when I was in high school. I had a kid climb out a window once to escape class. Okay? That was a dumbass thing to do. Okay, we had a kid who was running to lunch who put his hand through a glass window and essentially sliced it all the way up to his elbow just because he wanted what was offered at lunch. That is a dumbass thing to do. Okay, we had kids who were doing other things in class, right? We had one kid put, the old school, you put a thumbtack on someone's chair and they sit down on it. I don't know if you ever pulled that one back in your school days. That was kind of a dark one. That is a dumbass thing to do, right? So in calling that what it is, I don't think the teacher deserves to be fired. Now, is there a better word or phrase in that situation? Yes, but I'm going to say what everybody else says, and the thing is with every passing generation, and it's so funny because we repeat this all the time. JT, when you were a kid, you were lazy and unmotivated, and kids aren't the way they used to be. Okay? That's how it was when you were a kid. And then you got older, and now things have changed. When I was a kid, right? I'm a part of the millennial generation. I was the last wave of millennials. I was 96. I'm pretty sure that's the cutoff here. Oh, millennials are young, lazy, unmotivated, idealistic. Okay? Well, now all the millennials are getting to be the adults. Right? We're the ones out here paying bills and doing things. And so now it's Gen Z or Gen X or Gen Alpha or whatever the hell they call them. That's the new generation of kids, and all they're lazy and unmotivated and everything else like that. I don't believe that. I don't believe that for a second. But the way that it has become so culturally acceptable to discipline has changed drastically over the years. And I think I tie it, and that's what really pigeonholes people when it comes to disciplining kids. I don't think it's the kids' fault. They don't understand what they're doing wrong, nor did I understand what I was doing wrong at 15, 16 years old. The only difference is 13 years ago, even as soon as 13 years ago, certain things were acceptable then that are not acceptable now. And it's even something as slight as, and I'm okay saying it on this show because I thought it taught me a lot. And it wasn't ever to the point to where it would be considered beyond that point. But I got smacked a few times because I deserved it. Now, I'm not saying that's okay. All right, I don't want anybody to come out and clip that and send it off to wherever. Okay, I'm not saying it's all right to just walk around smacking people. Okay, that's not what I'm saying. But the kids haven't changed. The way that it is socially acceptable to raise or teach those kids has drastically changed over the years. And that's where we run into problems. That's where we run into issues. Okay? And so that's where I really come from. Is it okay to call a kid that? I don't know. Did he screw up on a math problem? Probably not. Probably not okay to call him that. Did he throw a chair at your projector screen and he broke some $2,000 equipment because he was messing around with his friends? Yeah. Yeah, it's probably okay to call him that. And for the parents, again, I don't know what the context of the situation is. I'll never know. I would certainly hope the parents would also do that if it were bad enough. Right? But this is I don't know. I don't have a parent. Yeah. I don't have a parent. I don't have a kid.
Well,
JP.
I don't think parents think that way. Not as much as they used to. You know, I mean, I don't think so. Growing up, I could tell you this right now. When the teacher would call my parents, it was immediately, you know, light was shining right on me like I was in an interrogation room. What did you do wrong? Right? Immediately. There are times my teacher would call to congratulate tell my parents some great news, and somehow it would still turn into a negative. I had my Spanish teacher my sophomore year of high school, who also happened to be my 8th grade Spanish teacher too, which, by the way, he went from middle school to high school. So I thought I was done with him in middle school when I graduated in 8th grade. I left and went to high school, and there he was. Maybe it was my freshman year. It was one of my first years in high school, and we're watching a movie, and I make a snark comment, and he goes, "Your mom," in front of the entire class. I went home and said, "Mom, my teacher like blasted you in class today," and she's like, "Well, what did you do?" I said, I gave him a little bit of it, and he gave it back to you. That was the end of it. There was no congressional hearing about it or anything along those lines. It was, you did it was your fault. And then I started to see a trend with my sister where my youngest sister, where again, all this time it was always me. Always me. And then all of a sudden it was like, no, we're going to find out what the teacher did here. You know, it was kind of weird how you kind of see the dynamic start to change where you're like, well, what? No, like she literally just didn't do well. Well, we want to find out why she didn't do well because she didn't study. You know, it's like, this isn't rocket science. She didn't study. Well, maybe the teacher didn't explain it right. Okay, so it started kind of shifting a little bit. And that's where society started to shift. Now, I'm not saying that all parents are like this. My wife and I, we would tell you this right now that we are in no way do we like we are involved in our children's lives, but we will oftentimes ask our kids a ton of questions, right? Again, almost like an interrogation, like I was when I was a kid, right? Why, who, where, what, all these things to get an understanding of what happens so that we don't make dumbasses of ourselves falling into some trap. And so, but a lot of parents out there are very much involved in these things, and they're like, you can't do that to my kid. That's my kid. You know, it's you can't call my kid a dumbass. You can't say those things. You can't do this. You can't do that. And it turns into this national inquisition, congressional hearings, and people getting fired and losing their jobs. It's, and we don't already, again, think about this. Not enough referees in sports. I would argue we don't have enough great teachers. All right. I would argue that we do not have enough great teachers. We got good teachers, right? We got good teachers. We've got adequate teachers. We got teachers that show up, do their job, go home. But is that what we want teaching our children? Is that who we want? Or do we want the ones that are so excited when they get out of college that like they're so excited because they're going to make a change and a difference. And then somewhere along the line between probably year 2 and 4, they're like, oh shit, we can't make a difference.
Yeah.
But I'm still a teacher, so I'm going to keep doing this. And because they deal with parents, coaches.
That's part of it.
I am not coaching soccer anymore, not because I didn't like coaching. I didn't want to deal with parents anymore.
Yeah.
That is why I left. I was tired of getting the email. I was tired of getting everything associated with it that had nothing to do with coaching and everything to do with, the emotional aspect of parents pissed off their kid didn't get playing time in that meaningless soccer game on a Tuesday night in the middle of October. That in the whole scheme of things isn't going to change the outlook of their life on any level. But, I was the terrible coach. You know what I mean? So that's why I'm not there. That's why coaches leave.
Yep.
That's why teachers don't want to be teachers, because they're dealing with this emotional component of that's my offspring, and you better not don't F with them.
Yeah. Yeah. And they a lot of them do come out of college idealistic. I've met people who studied education, who wanted to be teachers, who wanted to make a difference, who wanted to do all these things. And it's interesting seeing that progression from college to now, especially talking to them now. It's not physically, right, but mentally you feel as if they've almost aged 10 years in a stretch of 5. And it is the parents. It's also obviously financially. It's not the greatest paid position. In a lot of places, you are very underpaid. A lot of times you don't have the resources. And if you do want extra resources to help your students with learning, you have to pay out of your own pocket for a lot of those things. And again, it changes depend on school district and where you're in. And so obviously that's not universal all around. But in a lot of places it is. And in the teachers that I've talked to, and for whatever reason, I have a lot of friends that are involved in education. For some reason, I feel like I'm qualified to talk about this simply from having a billion conversations with them. But you're dealing with lack of resources, lack of money, lack of all these other things. Again, what is king in the United States, JT? What do we always go back to when we talk about there's an issue in this area? What do we need to do to fix it? Well, you need more money. And the truth is these teachers, while they can barely afford rent and car and all these other things, do not have the added funds to be able to get sometimes the things they need in order to make that learning experience special. But the parent side of it, the thing that always fascinates me, JT, is that they learn from you. They watch you, they listen to you, they repeat the same things that you repeat. These kids do. And so when you send them off to classrooms, I've heard some of the things that these young kids say. And it's stuff that I know that they didn't come up with on their own. They are repeating it verbatim from what they've heard from their parents. Your child is not a pet. Your child is not a dog or a cat, okay, where they don't speak English, so they don't really understand what it is that you're saying. When they're around you, they hear everything, and they repeat everything, and they're going to carry themselves that way going into the classroom, going into these other places. And so it's funny when you talk about these, these parent-teacher conferences and all these kids, they're bad apples. All the teachers that I know will all tell me the same thing. They know why these kids are that way. Because when they have these parent-teacher conferences, it becomes brutally apparent as to why they are acting the way that they are. It has nothing to do with that kid being a bad kid. Because half of it is nature. Okay, genetically speaking, sometimes you're just predisposed to be a certain way. There are certain things about my personality that I see in my father consistently that I wouldn't say I don't like, but it's like, oh man, that's one of those things I was really hoping I didn't pick up on as I got older, but here I am. It is what it is, part of its nature. The other side of it, JT, is nurture. All right, the other side of it is understanding what it means in order to teach your kids these things at a young age and act the right way. Right, because and you can speak to this more than I can. I almost feel like a hypocrite anytime I talk about kids and parents because I don't know what it feels like to be a parent. So there's only so far I can go with all this. But what I will say is that, again, they watch you. They watch you. They listen to you. They repeat the things that you do. What blows my mind is how people will not change anything about themselves when they have kids. It's almost like just picking up a pet. Hey, I got this new shiny thing, and it's going to be the greatest ever, and there's nothing wrong with them, and this, that, and the other thing. They watch and they learn from you. And so in one way or the other, it's not really even the kids if you want to take a look at it that way. It's the parents' mini version in the classroom. And then they have to deal with the grown-up child anytime they have to call them or tell them about anything that their kid did wrong. And this is, this is part of the problem in America, man. There's no accountability. There's no being better than this person or that person. It's, hey, my child's perfect. Don't touch him. So that's it is. And if you were to ask me, kind of like the conduct during sports events, I don't know what the solution is, because I think it's a cultural thing in America. I don't think I don't think there's an easy one-stop solution. And the truth is, and I've always brought it back to this, we used to have, Peter, I have heard worst for my nun teachers in Catholic elementary school. I had a nun teacher as well. She was really nice, though. She wasn't of the old school variety. Kids at a young age are sponges, absorbing everything that they see and hear. 110%, Peter. 110%. So that's the difficult position we find ourselves in. And as I was going to mention here in a second, I think a lot of it goes back to, historically speaking, and I don't say this in a comedic way. I'm saying this literally. We haven't had a war or a struggle or something else that's forced people to really sideline what they want to do in a long time. When I think about my grandparents' generation, they came from a war generation. So everything they did, and the way they carried themselves and the way they moved around, and almost kind of, very militaristic in a way. Everything was very disciplined. Everything was very, black and white, up and down, straight and sideways. Like, the way they did things was very uniform. And of course, that carried on to my parents' generation, because obviously my grandpa was in Vietnam, so he's very much, a military guy, so they carried themselves a certain way. And then obviously, my parents having me, okay, we had 9/11, we had everything like that, but we didn't have a draft. I mean, it's not like people were just randomly picked up and, hey, okay, you're going to be in the military now. Come on, we're sending you over. And then obviously since then, as in terms of being threatened or in terms of needing to live discipline in order to survive, you don't have to. There are safeguards. There are fallbacks. I could quit this job and my 7 other jobs and just work at a pizza place for the remainder of my life, and everything would be okay. Like, there's no sense of urgency in my mind. There is a sense of urgency in my mind, but not a sense of urgency in everybody's mind to really. And the other thing is perspective too. Like, we live so comfortably that there's this bit of arrogance that we're just going to live forever. And that's part of the comfortability of living in the United States. Right? You don't have to get up every day and feel like your life's in danger. You don't have to get up every day and have this perspective of, well, it could all be over tomorrow. There could be another war and you could be pulled in, and life is short and we must celebrate it and act a certain way in order to carry ourselves, because hard times create strong men create good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times. Yeah. I mean, and I've heard the comedian bit before. Oh, we haven't had a good war in a while. That's why we are the way that we are. And, people laugh about it, but there is some validity to that. We haven't had a major struggle. Yeah, we've gone through recessions and stuff like that, but nothing that's immediately threatened anything about our freedom. And you are old enough to remember 9/11 distinctly. So maybe you can speak to this, but I felt like after 9/11, there was kind of like that moment where it was like, okay, we might not like each other for this reason or that reason or whatever politics, but now we're all kind of in this together because someone, outside of the family wanted to come and do something to the family. We haven't had something like that really since 2001. So that's the part of it is I think we're too comfortable, JT. And I think that's led to a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, 9/11 I remember very vividly, right? And I do remember, like, afterwards, the unity, right? And it didn't matter where you were from or who you were. your backgrounds, culture, none of that mattered. Everybody was together. It was the most united I've ever seen this country ever. And obviously at that time I was just 18 years old, 19 years old. So I wasn't like, I can say ever, but before then and after then, that was it, right? And there was probably like a year or two probably where you felt that unification. Then after that, it kind of slowly dissipated. And then, there have been other times where I think that there might have been opportunities for us as a nation to kind of come together. But not since then.
Right.
I think there's a lot to unpack there, and obviously we don't have enough time in this show to be able to unpack all of that. But we've talked about the culture and talked about society a ton on this show. And the reason I even asked this question is because, I get it, right? I mean, I do. I understand it. You want your kids to be led down a path towards whatever that vision is for you and your family. Every family has a unique outlook on life that might be similar to other families and other people within the society. But again, I think we all have our own vision of what we think our children should do, or what they should be or have access to, how they should be educated. That's why we want to move our kids to a private school in some scenarios. That's why we want to have our kids in a certain school district, because again, we want our children to have access to things that give them the best possible opportunity to go to where they want to go success-wise, right? And maybe we don't know what that success looks like at the time, but we believe, again, hey, if this is the best club soccer team, I'm putting my kid over here because it's the best. And if they're playing with the best and are in the best environment, that means that maybe that increases their opportunities to go to the next level, right? We're just giving our kids these opportunities. And be fair, that is a big proponent in it as to why people think that the inequalities in our world are there as well, because the access to opportunity isn't equal across the board, right? It's not like if I go into the city of Detroit and go to Troy School District and go out to Grand Rapids into Muskegon, right? Or go or wherever, like every single school district is different. It offers different things. It has different before school, after school programs, athletics, everything is different.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing about the system that is like, okay, well, I go here, I get this, and that we all get this. Now, you can argue that in the classroom, you're probably going to get very similar, maybe educational components, right? Maybe we're talking about, the what do you call it? The curriculum, right? But I would argue that that's probably not the same at every school, right? So, again, everybody wants opportunity, right? And there's not I think a parent on earth, that would say, I want my kids to have a poor opportunity. Well, I want to have a good opportunity. I want my kids to be in a place to be able to get the good, right? And let's be honest, if you were to ask a poll, if you polled your parents, let's go poll 10 parents, I would tell you that 10 parents would say they do not want their kids in the Detroit public school system, or in the Flint public school system, or in this public school system, or that one. They would tell you what school, if money was no issue, if transportation was no issue, they would be picking the top programs in the state of Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So we know that. And again, maybe it's 8 out of 10 that say that. I mean, maybe it's, I don't know. But again, if you're thinking about it from the standpoint too of athletically, there are schools in Detroit, in the Detroit school system, when it comes to football, basketball, that pump out really good players that go on to play at really big schools.
Yeah.
So the argument might not be about education. It might be about opportunity, which comes from someplace else. Right. And that's a thing too. So a lot to unpack there. But the reason why I want to do this today, ask that question today, was because in club soccer, at the highest of levels in this country, there is this thing that's always happened in the fall and in the spring as it relates to high school soccer. Every year this happens. And it's been happening since it's 2007. Every year this happens. Every year, players, parents go into a club environment where and then I say the highest levels, MLS Next, Girls Academy, ECNL. And there are clubs out there that do not play in those like leagues that offer full year programs for their high school players. So they're playing 10 months a year. Okay. Maybe it's RL, it's NA. There's so many different variations of this, but But there are these teams and clubs that you're participating in that when you sign up as a parent, mom and dad, you know this because it's on the dotted line. You know it. You're playing full year with us. That means you can't play high school. That's what it means. Now, is it fair? No, it's not fair. Life's not fair. Wear a helmet. It's not fair. So we know it's not fair. But you're signing up at the time. You're signing up for it. You know what you're signing up for.
Yeah.
And the high school coach, the players in those programs, of course they're going to be like, hey, come play for our team. We have a chance this year to do something really special. Right? We see it time and time again. And I remember back in 2007 when the academy was created that there was this big thing. Well, high school soccer is going to come to an end. High school soccer is nowhere near coming to an end.
Yeah.
Nowhere near it. Because for every one player that plays in MLS Next, there's 400 that don't. So,
right.
There's 500 that don't. So it's not going anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm actually a firm believer that the academy has created an opportunity for the player who otherwise wouldn't be on that team now or would not be a star on their team now and currently are stars on their teams, in their high school teams, and scoring 30 or 40 goals a year because the player that was going to come in, who's on the MLS Next team, is currently scoring goals in massive amounts when they come back and play. So this has created opportunities for other players to step up and be a part of something really cool. But my message is this. You can't go in after you sign the agreement, mom and dad and player, and say, well, we don't want to do it. We don't want to hold up our end of it. You know what I mean? It is one thing if you walk up to a coach at tryouts and say, here's the deal, coach. I'm playing high school soccer this year. We need to amend this thing. I want to play high school soccer. And if the coach at that point opts to, which again, I don't believe there's a single coach on Mother Earth that is going to tell a player in the ECNL who is of the highest caliber that could win a Mr. or Mrs. Soccer in any state in this country that we're not going to have you on our club. There is not a single coach on planet Earth that would do that. Okay? I would love to see one example of where they cut that player and were willing to lose a player because they wanted to spend 2 months playing something that every high school athlete on earth wants to do. So, and if they do, I want to see one example, right? Because that coach needs to be, if anyone needs to be fired, that coach needs to be fired, right? And called the dumbass because that doesn't make any sense. Yeah. So I don't believe that even is a thing. Now, granted, there are repercussions, there are consequences to this, right? And I know that there are programs out there that have said, hey, you can't, I know high school in Michigan, for example, MHSAA says, you have to sit out a period of time, maybe it's a couple games if you're going to play a little bit and then come in. I know clubs have said, hey, if you're going to come back, we're not going to play you for the first couple of weeks. Okay, fine. Sure. Because you don't want the kids who stood, but everybody has a different path. If you are if you are a high school kid who's already signed your letter of intent and are committed to a college, and your season's over with. Like the spring season for girls, I believe for ECNL is over with right now. There's no soccer happening. It's all training. There's no tournaments. So all the girls who are playing spring soccer right now, they're going to train 3 times a week. So they're going to go train and they're not going to play in any games. Does that make any sense? It doesn't. But again, know what you're signing up for, mom and dad. Know what you're committing to. And be upfront with coaches about it. And maybe you don't know when you sign up that you want to play high school soccer. Maybe it's not a thing. But maybe you should be thinking about it and making sure you make that understanding, because this is the problem right now in America is we are afraid we don't honor our commitments. And when there are commitments that are on the table that you have honored, you want to fight tooth and nail, and it turns into a big pissing match. And it's got to come to an end. It never will, but at least if you know what's going into it.
Read the fine print.
Read the fine print. Every parent sees their kid as a rising star or a top star. They are blinded by their biases. They need a slap in the face to realize the kids show it on the field. Whew.
Oh, geez. All right, Peter, don't go around smacking people, dude.
Well, why not, man? I mean, why not?
Oh, no, yeah. I mean, I agree, and that good for them in believing that, but like I said, I'll double down on what you said, JT. Read the fine print. You can't sign a contract and then tell me later that you don't agree. But oh boy, here we go with it again. The slap part 2. There's a part 2 to this.
There's a part 2, yeah.
Oh jeez. That's my favorite part. Oh jeez. That's you, Peter. Cookout full of parents. It's just Peter.
Couldn't help it, man. Couldn't help it. Head to head. He said smack everybody. I there it is. There's the smack. That's a wrap here on our show. Real quick here before we leave it, and we'll talk more about this tomorrow. Last night, Bianca and I had a chance to watch a movie on Netflix called The Trap. Okay, I would encourage anyone to go watch this movie. I have no stake in this at all. Okay, but you need to go watch this movie, and we all need to come together and see how dumb this really is. It's like it is. It legitimately. First off, there's an FBI agent in this thing. She must be 88 years old. I'm not sure how old she is in real life. Not that's a problem, but she's Zach Morris's original teacher from Saved by the Bell. All right, so
really,
like original Saved by the Bell when they were like little tykes, right? Like, yeah, and I don't remember her name in the show. I forgot what her name was in the show, but anyways, you need to go watch this movie. And Nathan, watch this movie tonight, man. You need to watch it, and we need to come together tomorrow and talk about this movie because I don't think I can explain it in a way that would make sense until you watch it, and we consider go, man, that was interesting.
Yeah.
It was interesting. Perfect. And there's going to be a part 2. There's going to be a part 2. So, anyways, The Trap on Netflix. Anyways, that wraps up our show here on Thursday. Have a great rest of your day. Remember to be back here tomorrow, same time, same place on Inside the Game, right here on the National Soccer Network. This has been a presentation of the National Soccer Network.